Okay. So, um, I tried to negotiate to do a feasibility study while they are pushing for PPA and building up to sign up license while technology doesn't exist. They agree the study of feasibility needs to happen at some point, but they want to raise money to do that feasibility. But they want to raise money to do that feasibility study.
Well, not to do the feasibility, like raise money to do the project.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
as a first step,
Yeah.
the study that I'm talking about
Okay.
would happen at some point.
They inverted everything. From their plan, they want to get a PPA first, then raise money without any engineering study, and then only make that feasibility study. At that point, I said SolarFire cannot make any commitment without the feasibility study done first. In their framework, the word feasible doesn't seem to exist, they just make the project. This process of taking a country in Africa, Namibia, then Ghana, then Myanmar, then Angola, and trying to get PPAs happens 4 times. Each time I'm arguing that feasibility needs to be solved, but they keep being vague, and Christian and David always want to go for PPAs first.
Yeah.
At that point, since SolarFire didn't commit, we could just be one of their one of many suppliers they are talking to. So when I hear from emails that they get their PPAs and that they are moving money around, I'm not yet worried because...
Well, I'm worried, but I don't have proof. I start to get worried, like when this process starts to repeat itself.
I start to get worried, but I don't have proof.
Yeah.
They could have other supplier and the project may be happening.
Yeah.
Okay. At that point, since SolarFire didn't commit, we could just be one of many suppliers they are talking to. So when I hear from emails that they get their PPAs and that they're moving money around, I start to get worried, but I don't have proof. They could have other supplier and the project may be happening.
Yeah, or some other legal way to not do the project. Like we haven't committed, so we don't have any. We don't have any evidence of fraud. So like we don't know what they promised to who,
Mm-hmm.
right?
We don't know what they promised to who. So
yeah. So for me, and from my perspective, like I interpret investors as like venture capital investors.
I interpret investor as venture capital investor
who know about risks and due diligence and so on, right?
Know about risk and due diligence.
Yeah. So in my mind, they're talking to these venture capital investors. Okay, so and venture capital knows how not to launder money, right?
In my mind, it's all okay.
Not okay because because these projects just disappear without any explanation. They're just like I'll follow up about Ghana. I follow up about Namibia, and then David's like, oh, that didn't happen. And then Ghana. Then there's all this talk about Ghana, and then I follow up about Ghana months later.
About Namibia, and I hear from David.
That just didn't happen.
From David?
Yeah, from David.
From David that it didn't happen.
So he wouldn't explain anything.
Follow up for Ghana.
Again, it just didn't happen.
Again, it just didn't happen. But
no explanation.
They don't. He doesn't give me any explanation. he doesn't have to.
Yeah, he doesn't exactly.
He doesn't have to.
But I start to get worried because of this.
But I start to get worried of these process repeating.
Yes.
Process
Without any money, without
repeating.
anything happening. Like, and how does business keep happening year after
without
year without any progress?
anything happen. Um,
Like, imagine if like 2016 and like it starts, like conversations start 2015.
Sure.
So imagine 2015 to 2019, you're running Avalanche, but no game ever gets made. And you keep on talking to me about games you're raising money for, and then like imagine you came to me and you talk about Went AI, you're gonna do that and so on. Then you raise money for it somehow, but then the game never exists. Then you just say, oh, that game didn't happen, and then you go to the next game.
Do you have proof that nothing exists in Ghana and Namibia?
Yeah, but well, David says that the deal doesn't happen. David is always clear.
David said
the deal didn't happen.
The deal didn't happen, but you know they got PPAs for it.
Yeah. So this is where I'm inexperienced. This is where my inexperience in business comes in.
Okay.
So now I know that these emails, like I don't go through all the emails, right? Because this is like really slow over years. So I don't have and I'm focused on my own problems.
Sure. But answer my question.
Yeah.
Do you know that when he say the deal didn't happen?
Yeah, nothing happened.
Do you know if they got PPAs first?
Yes. Yeah.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Then.
I have proof that even if the projects didn't happen, they still got PPAs.
Okay, can I read another email?
Yes.
So like 2017. Dear Orion, this is an email from, well, this is like a key email, this is where the word money laundering occurs for the first time in this whole process.
No,
in 2017.
Yeah. Just not now.
Okay.
I have proved that even if the project didn't happen, they still got PPAs.
Yeah.
PPAs, explain me how it works. PPAs, they can move money around. What do you mean?
So PPA just stands for Power Purchase Agreement, and it's the like acronym lingo for
Power Purchase Agreement.
Yeah, it's the acronym lingo for making selling electricity to the government usually, or the grid.
Allows private company to sell electricity.
To the grid, yeah.
Company to sell electricity to the state.
Well, the grid. Usually the state, but the grid company.
The grid.
Le réseau électrique.
To the grid company.
So like every country has a grid.
Electrical.
Yeah, every country has a grid, and then if you're supplying power to the grid, you have a power purchase agreement.
Okay.
So like if you have photovoltaic panels on your house that are connected to the grid, you'll have a power purchase agreement about this.
So, but what if David takes this power purchase agreement? What does he do with it?
Yeah, well, I'll read you the email.
Yes.
So like, I write to you in a peculiar language.
Okay. So wait, if this email is important, I'm gonna mention it there. Who is this email from?
So this is email from Orion to me, where he's copied. He's forwarded me an email from Christian to him.
Email forwarded from Christian to Orion. Orion is engineer.
Orion's the retired engineer who made the ORC system.
Engineer that made the ORC systems.
Yeah, and our whole confidence is kind of based on Orion, because he's an actual engineer. So like the technology, we did the numerical study of the technology. It can work, right? We were really skeptical if the technology could even work in principle before we did the numerical study.
Sure.
But that's like, okay, going from a numerical study to a multi-megawatt prototype, it's huge, huge step. So anyways, so this is the Orion to me. Dear David and Eric, I just received this email from Christian Erlandsen.
Can you?
Best regards. And then so there's
Can you copy paste that and send it to me.
Yeah. Well, I will. I'll just print these out.
And you, yeah. No, I need the text. So
No, I'll print out the whole email chain.
okay. But what does the email say?
Well, I'll read you the email, and then I'll send you. But I write, Dear Ordian. So this is Christian writing
Yes.
to Ordian. Dear Ordian, I write to you in for a peculiar language, as it might happen that you will share this with our friends in Finland.
Mhm.
I wanted to give you a quick update on the situation as it is right now. We are waiting to two things, the term sheet and the PPA. The PPA is dependent on the land agreement where the plant will be located. Terms and conditions in the PPA have been agreed upon. The details about the land must be included in the PPA before it is signed. Our main partner in Ghana will deal with this in coming weekend. When it comes to the term sheet, we have been trapped in Norwegian bureaucracy. I hate to say it. It was about money laundering and the confirmation that a money transfer to the investor is clean. That has delayed the payment for the due deal. Due deal is his due diligence. When we had the meeting in Stockholm, he mentioned like 1,000 times. This is now history, and all are happy. So far, my hiccups. Then even more key evidence. The next paragraph. As you have seen, the internet is full of new solar projects in Africa, and we will be one of them. The first plant will be our reference project. It contains a number of mirrors and many kilometers of pipes. This has altogether be designed as a professional industry plant in processing, not something homemade. Can you guarantee that we have the same aim here and that you guys have the know-how to design such a reference installation? So he like flips the bird, like the suspicion on us. Because like at that, like when I meet David in 2014, they only have this homemade thing in a shed, a 30-second video. And now this email is sent 2017. Right? And this is already like, and the previous email I just read was in 2016. Right? So it's like a whole fucking year goes by. Well, not a year, this is January. So months go by. And from 2014 to 2017, so 3 whole years, all that exists is these pipes in a shed, right? So this is where I start get worried. Like that's not how our tech development has been really slow at Solar Fire, but it does happen, right? Every year we have some improvement we've made technically. New machines in Africa or in Switzerland or in Finland we built. Right? Every year we build something, we improve something. We built in San Francisco. So right, if you ask, so you can be like, well, you've been working on this a long time. You don't have like a mass product product. Okay, fair criticism, but we do have prototypes, and we're trying to get there, right? Whereas this engineering process is literally years and years of no technical developments at all, but then continuously talking about PPAs and signing PPAs and moving money that is like, and then what is this payment for? Well, the payment for the due deal. Well, the due deal doesn't happen because we don't do any due diligence, right? So he's saying here that there's money about that has delayed the payment for the due deal. Well, the due diligence would be us doing either answering due diligence questions to an investor, right? Or then we do the due diligence kind of like on ourselves, like the feasibility study would be part of the due diligence process, right? So there's money transferred for something that then never happens. Right? And this money was held up on suspicion of money laundering. So this is the first time money laundering appears in the conversation.
Okay, so in this email, there is a confirmation that money has been moved. In this email, there is a confirmation that money has been moved.
Yeah.
Okay. I've proved that even if the project didn't happen, they still got PPAs. A power purchase agreement allows private company to sell electricity to the grid company. I have an email forwarded from Christian to Orion. In this email, there's a confirmation that the money has been moved. Okay?
Yeah, and so if you want to just quick proof that PPAs. So until I just searched Ghana and PPA, and maybe they never confirm they get the PPA. Maybe Orion. But anyways, here's a quick proof that like PPAs then. This is called Angola paperwork in 2019.
Mm.
So if there were PPAs that were actually gotten before, I wasn't conscious of it.
Mm.
So okay, there's this money moved, and like this email that I found it by just searching money laundering in my inbox after this whole like. So it wasn't in my mind as something key at the time. And then for me, when I read that, I vaguely remember reading that email.
You've already mentioned money laundering if he's part of it, Christian.
No, yeah. So this is where like the money. This is where the risk of crime comes in. Where was that email? This is where the risk of crime comes in. Where they are also entrepreneurs taking risks. I write to you in a for us particular language, so that's what he writes. Doesn't make any sense in English, but whatever. I guess I write to you in a particular language. As it might happen that you will share this with our friends in Finland. So he's worried about how we'll react to the mention of money laundering. And he's getting Orion, he's softening Orion up to it. Because we trust Orion, right? So the whole thing is like, we're only in this process because we trust Orion, he's an actual engineer, right? He says sensible things like, we'll provide expertise, and somebody else is implementing the project, right? So he's softening Orion up, and this is not like Christian doesn't say forward this email to your friends in Finland, right? So and then Orion is for sure he's a retired guy, way easier to manipulate, and doesn't know anything about business. Engineers don't necessarily know anything about business, right? So he's more easy to manipulate, and then I guess if he just maybe he like he doesn't know, maybe the Norwegians will contact Orion, you know, maybe the Norwegians will contact me. So he doesn't know he knows he's under suspicion of money laundering. He doesn't know how far the investigation is going to go, right? So he's trying to soften up Orion, soften us up, so that we don't fucking panic when if somebody phones us about money laundering, right? And then so this is part of his game, right? And he gets away with it. Obviously, this is 2017, right? And then okay, then so this is an email literally called Angola paperwork.
Mention of money laundering.
Yeah, but in the previous thing, he says he's about to get the PPA, but they already have a land agreement, right? And they've already moved money, right? So there's definitely evidence that they're moving money around about these deals, right? But then I asked David about Ghana. He says, "Oh, it didn't happen." No explanation. But anyways, here's quick proof of actual PPAs. Here are everything I've been involved in, of the documents to use to get the Angola PPA.
This is an email from who?
From David to me. I thought we also had a framework agreement for a JV company, but it might only be a first proposal for a project agreement where it was stated that a JV should be formed. I do at least not find a JV framework agreement draft. I think these documents are the best ones to start designing the business structure.
Okay.
So then this is then where I start to this is what you've heard so far is just like talk, and then they mention stuff, but we're not asked to do anything, right? So that's why I'm not focused on it.
Yeah.
Right, because for me it's like, okay, don't present anything for me to sign. You know, there's all sorts of bullshit talk in startup world, right? All the time. So like, if bullshit was a crime, like we'd be in jail for sure.
Until then, I never had to sign anything, so I didn't really care or went into it deeply. But then we are in
2019, and then here's a.
But in 2019.
Yeah, well, here's an email. Like, here's just an example of an email to May 2020. Hello, I just received the technology license draft and sent you a review. So technology license draft. It is only you and Ava, or shall anyone else review, such as Urs, regarding the MFA. I believe you already use Google Docs, and you can use the same MFA app, Google Authenticator, also for Rike. So all of these things live in Rike. This like a shared document drafter. I also have hardware tokens you can use for MFA if you prefer.
Okay, but tell me about 2019. What happened?
So then in 2019, okay, let's like here's a letter from Christian Endelson to some guy named Peter at some other company. Dear Peter, I'm afraid this is a bit premature. We do not yet have placed a formal order for the plant. We are in discussions with the ministry in Ghana at the moment, and we have to come back to the timing of the detailed design. Best regards. So this is 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then so it's like, so they set up like they set up like they're talking with other companies, the CSI group, talking with the director of business, where he like anyways like, so there's these like discussions with engineering firms, but no engineering ever happens, right? So they have the discussions and the people and the partners or whatever, right, to get the PPAs. Then boom, poof, it just disappears.
Yeah.
So then like David asks me to make a solar rendering of the like as many modules.
I'm trying to be on track.
Yeah.
In 2019, what happened?
So then 2019. So then 2019 they start to like go towards this like signing licenses and shit. And then I pull us out of the project entirely.
Toward signing license.
Yeah.
On this technology that doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't exist.
Yes.
So you, what do you do?
So I'm then like okay, either the feasibility happens or we're out. Basically. And like this is an example of like of shit David wants every once in a while. This is a good example.
Okay. I put my foot on the wall and I said either feasibility study happen or
we're out.
We out.
And then like, so this is another example of what they asked us to like do casually.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And for free. So then right, so then I pull out like, okay, so here's Christian to me, like just here's a short. Other emails are a lot longer, but here, Eric, I'm afraid that you, with all your statements, you sell yourself out of the project. So I'm saying there's fucking serious problems now, right? We don't have a feasibility study. Talking license what, right?
Yeah.
Right, and that without a feasibility study, we can't go forward. And these people are talking about moving 800,000 euros around, millions of euros around, 260 million.
And you said no, I don't want it. I don't want this shit.
And they can't put in 20,000 euros for a feasibility study, so we're not talking out of our ass.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So then, like Christian represents himself as like a millionaire.
Yeah.
Right. I'm afraid that you, with all your statements, Eric, I'm afraid that you, with all your statements, you sell yourself out of the project. I've never indicated that I will start up the project without solar fire. So they're not talking to other suppliers.
Okay.
Right. On the contrary, I've said I actually thought we had an agreement. Right. So because they go and say other people that were committed. Right. So that then if things go bad, they just say we didn't do it. Right. I have also asked if you could develop a draft proposal we could discuss. Instead, the only messages you send is your fear that I will disclose confidential materials. Because I'm like, you can no longer use any of our materials.
Yeah.
Right. I confirm that I have never forwarded any information given by you, and I do not intend to do so in the future. And if this statement is not satisfactory, I have to ask you to cite the email sent to me so that I can be specific in my statements. However, I do hope you could, because David also gives him a shit ton of information, right? Because usually we give it to David, right? So he'd be like, oh, I didn't get anything from you guys, right? However, I do hope you could start up a more constructive communication and even settle the issue with David, your board member, right? So now it's because David's our board member, so we can represent the company in all the whatever they're doing, right? You talk after all of a profit potential in the neighborhood of USD 10 million for solar fire for the next coming years. Think we're gonna get fucking 10 million euros out of this? No, nothing happening process. However, we have not yet realized all formalities with the customer and the funding partner. Now he's trying to like hedge, like, oh, maybe there's no deal actually happening. Without a change in your attitude, I'm afraid this opportunity will be lost. Right, and this is the guy that keeps on going on about do deal.
Right? I know.
So then, here's my information. Like, here's my previous email. Dear Christian, all information shared in meetings and material by email have been clearly stated or marked as confidential. This is for me. Of course, what is most important is material shared by email. And if you read the email history, it is clearly stated that the materials is confidential. And in many cases, you have permission to show it in a meeting, but not transfer the files to a third party. If you want me to cite my own emails to you, I can do so. If you disagree with the above statements, then there is a serious problem. In the in-person meetings, the structured discussion was that if a PPA was signed, a third entity would be created that would have the license of both technologies. Our involvement in the discussion has been direct, not through Grelik as an intermediary. Because then he tried to rearrange things like, oh, we already licensed the technology to Grelik, who licensed it to them. So far, I have not talked about this project to any investor, as there is no formal agreement, and it is unclear. Because I'm like, well, if we have an agreement that's like legit engineering, I can go raise investment. Like, I want to do these study anyways. So I'm trying to like be like, look, let's sort out, let's sign something that makes sense, so I can go raise the money, right, to do it anyways. The PPA, so far I have not talked about this project to any investor, as there is no formal agreement, and it is unclear we even stand to benefit, even if the PPA is signed, as another technology may immediately be selected, and our involvement has only been in order to secure the PPA and establish a negotiation position in which to sell the PPA interests to another party. Whether because it was planned this way, or because, due to a lack of detailed engineering studies done beforehand, there is no way to implement the project with our technology in the required time frame, or then for any other reason, such as needing to sell the interests of the PPA due to financial reasons. As there is no formal agreement, whatever potential benefits we might otherwise expect to have based on informal verbal assurances, no such benefit would transfer with the PPA if it was to be sold to a third party. As I'm sure you can appreciate, at some point such an agreement is no longer justifiable in terms of the engineering work to move conversations forward, as well as time spent negotiating an informal agreement that clearly no one has any clear idea of what it is, and there is no record of understanding anywhere that might illuminate matters. However, with a formal agreement, then investors can help first of all financing the detailed engineering study of this kind of project, to get accurate estimates on costs and performance for the location, labor costs, earthworks, transport, turbines, etc. The engineering study work is needed both to actually plan such a project, as well as convince other sources of finance and other investors. With this size project, very detailed feasibility and project implementation studies will be expected from any party involved, both to establish cost and performance and to compare with other technologies the advantages and disadvantages. Such detailed studies are needed not simply for the project in question, but any further project. So it is not a problem for us to spend money on these studies. But a formal agreement is needed to share the results of the study and be committed to actually do the project. We are, of course, perfectly content to advance in the context of a formal agreement. But, for the reasons stated above, we can no longer justify continued participation without a written understanding, and we can no longer simply entertain seeing where it goes while contributing minimal work, as we must be clear and upfront with investors about our engagements. We cannot present undefined engagements to investors, and so we must either formalize those engagements or clearly and unequivocally terminate them so that our business position is perfectly clear. In this case, it must be clear and in writing what the substance of the collaboration is and what our engagement is, as to not conflict with future deals with other parties. Either such claims must be formalized or then we must make it perfectly clear at this time that we view no such claims existing. We have no other course of action that we can offer. If you do not see a formal agreement necessary, then we request you cease using our material in any context and that you provide a reasonable account of how the material has been used and to whom.
Okay.
So I fucking like this.
You put your feet on the wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then they give me this bullshit. Then David, I just read to you the Christian's email to me. Then David, hi Christian. I believe there is some misunderstanding between those. So then Christian answers. So this is September 2019. Is some misunderstanding between the parties in this project, and it might have been because I've not been available much of the last period of time. I'm sorry for this. Some days ago, Eric and I discussed how to proceed with the Angolos project. There are two options: either to end the collaboration for now, and that Green Power Angola would request for a quotation when there is financing in place, or that there is an agreement is formed that we can be used to recruit further investment for solar fire. The project is great interest for solar fire, but Eric's main concern is the lack of engineering performed. We're talking about this since 2014. Nothing's happened. I cannot agree more, but I understand that you are aware and manage the risk. Eric also suggests that Solar Fire shall invest in the project to make sure we advance, just as he explained in the earlier correspondence. This is to reduce risk of a situation where we, in the end of this year, have a PPA but still no funding to perform the required engineering. Reasonable risk to be concerned about. We both believe that there is a great opportunity to get funding from Swedfund, Finnfund, and the Norwegian equivalent. Eric and I currently reviewing all the agreements between us and updates and blah blah blah. Right. So David's sold to Christian that, or they get together and they know the money laundering. They need to pretend that we're committed to these projects to get the PPAs and stuff. Yeah, then Christian, thank you for the update. I could not hide that I got worried about the lack of sound from Eric and yourself. I trust we will be back on track again when I'm uncertain about the organization of the project, so let me summarize the main issues as I see it. Green Power signed a service agreement with Grelec a long time ago. Solar Fire is included in the agreement.
You didn't sign anything.
I didn't sign it, no. Green Power signed a service agreement with Grelec a long time ago.
Yeah, okay.
Grelec is David's company. David's a board member.
Yes.
Solar Fire is included in the agreement. So we have a fucking director of the company committing us without us knowing.
That's not legal.
Yeah, so this is where this is where the evidence of the money laundering comes up. Right, so up until now...
Well, this is not money laundering. This is just he's abusing power.
No, because it's fraud. It's fraud. He's been fraudulently representing to Angola and other parties that we're committed to these projects. Then he's moving money around. So... The crime is fraud, and moving money around is then benefiting from the fraud. Right? Telling Angola grid company that you're going to deliver power without knowing that the technology doesn't exist and it's not going to happen, and it's just for moving money around. Mm-hmm. Right? Well, that's fraud. The PPA is a promise.
That's fraud.
Yeah, and then moving money around is the money laundering.
Well, we're not sure.
No. Money laundering is crime plus moving money. So if you do a crime and then you move the money. The moving the money is the money laundering, and the original crime is the crime. If you move money legally, for legal reasons, right, that's not money laundering. But if you commit a crime, like here, the crime is they've signed PPA with Angola promising our technology, right? That's what he's explaining right here, right? So that's defrauding the Angolan people out of power, right? Then they move money around, which they tell me about, right? You saw the email where they're like, oh, money's been held up on suspicion of money laundering, right? So this whole time, and this is the scheme, this whole time they've been telling people they have a license for our technology and we're going to do it and so on. Then they move money around and then they just kind of unwind the project somehow, right? So they say, they'll go and they say, oh, we moved the seed money. Like they often talk about seed money. So they move the seed money and then, oh, well, we couldn't do the project. Right? And then if anything goes wrong, they'd be like, well, they said they could do it, but they couldn't do it, right? So this is like, they're telling us one thing, until now, they're letting us believe we're raising venture capital investment, because that's the only reasonable business thing to do. But while they're going around saying that they got the license for our technology, and you saw the renderings I showed, right? It looks credible, like if you don't know anything about engineering.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, sure.
This one of the things.
Okay.
Anyways, the point is, so let me see. Solar Fire is included in the agreement, but not signed by Solar Fire.
Well, that's not possible.
Yeah.
That's just not so. It's
yeah.
So what? That means Solar Fire. You just say that SolarFire has been put in an agreement that is not aware of. That's what he
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
That's basically what he said.
And a director, and David's a director.
Yeah, but like, he doesn't own like David may be a board. David may be a board member, but like, look at Abalance. There's no fucking way you can go around and say Abalance will do things.
No, fraud.
There's no way.
It's fraud.
There's no way because
No. David committing us is just pure straight up fraud.
yeah,
But to other parties, they won't know.
yeah, that's
Like
sure,
Dave,
sure.
right? It's a perfect setup, right, for other people not to quit because David's a board member. So if David shows up to a meeting and
Sure.
and is like,
Sure.
"This is how it is," no one's gonna come and ask
Of
me.
course.
Exactly.
Of course, that's
Exactly.
true. That if you do that and you go around
I get away with it for a
and you
long
get
time.
away, you can get away for a long time.
Yeah.
But when I notice that,
It's exactly.
it's over.
Yes.
Like you cannot do that anymore.
Yes. So this is
Okay, so
And then he's like, I would appreciate a life sign from Eric confirming that SolarFire is still in the group. Right? So they've made some sort of like industrial group to move to do these projects.
yeah, but like you didn't know about that.
No, exactly, just straight up fraud.
Okay.
His emails made me very confused. You mentioned also that he wanted to invest in the project and thereby become an equity partner. It would be good to hear about this from the horse's mouth and thereby be able to see that this is reality or not. Right? Then he tries to like flip like this is money laundering technique. Always like flip the burden of suspicion, right? So I'm suspicious about him. No, he's suspicious about me and my like investment. I'm like, I can go and raise 20. If there's something signed, I can go raise 20,000 to do the fucking engineering study. Right now, he's like, ooh, does he have this equity? This project has been a long ride, to use the horse expression again. I know that working in Africa is a frustrating exercise, but this has been difficult, I admit. However, we are now close to a conclusion. The agreement with the off-taker, Katoka, is done and the financial partner is on the go to provide the funding. The CEO is currently in Angola to finalize his takeover of an Angola bank. Which proves their interest in Angola. A good sign for us, I think. I want to look ahead and look forward to a nice and fruitful cooperation. I also look forward to hearing from Eric shortly. So at this point, I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? And I then write to David that this is either bad faith business or money laundering. But I think David, at that point, so this is my mistake, because I didn't have enough business experience. I think David is a target as much as us.
Yeah.
Right, because Orion, he's a real engineer. Like we trust him, and David seems to be involved in a lot of things, like in Sweden, and I've met David many times, right? So I think we're kind of like somewhat friends. I even wanted to like go visit his house on his island. Like he lives on an island. He's like an upper class dude, lives on an island. His wife, as far as I understand, his wife's an auditor, right? So it's like nothing signals that this guy's like a criminal, right? And then he does talk about other businesses he's been consulting for and working for that are real businesses, right? So David's involved in like real business for sure, and he's not good at this renewable energy industrial game, but maybe he's good at other stuff he does, right? And so then I kind of perceive David as like continuing the Grelec thing as like vanity project. So after a couple of years of this, I interpret David, he's just like pretending the Grelec thing is moving forward, even though it doesn't. And then he kind of works on deals, but they don't go anywhere. But maybe this kind of like helps his other businesses. Like he was CEO of Grelec, and so he has a website. So like for me, it's like, okay. And then Orion's a retired engineer, so he can kind of just like the company can be kind of a zombie company forever. And then so that's kind of my interpretation of the psychology of what's going on. Orion likes the idea that he has like an engineering company. Like it's clearly like it was a retirement project. So it's like fun for Orion. And then David, it's one of his businesses. So it's better if it doesn't fail. So this is how I interpret David involvement. And it explains why he then goes towards shady deals. Right, if he's not able to get the real, like, because he does work on what would be legitimate deals, like in Sweden. At one point, he is working on a farm deal, and that was interesting. like doing a farm first with this technology, and then we can for sure supply heat for a greenhouse, right? And then in a co-heat and power production setup where you're like heating stuff, greenhouses and barns or whatever, and water, right? And then producing a little bit of electricity, it then makes it way easier engineering wise, because we're not competing with grid production, right? And then the extra electricity is kind of like a little bonus, right? So this was like would have been real engineering, and that was conversation also happened like early days, 2014, 2015. So, but that project doesn't have like, and then this Sweden would have paid, right, for this kind of like pilot and experimental project. So, anyways, my perception is David has kind of like gone to this like weird world of business with Christians clearly not good faith at this point, right? You cannot call this legitimate business. There's never any due diligence, even though he talks about it all the time, right? And then, but I think David's going to come back to me after this exchange, and then I tell him it seems like laundering money. I think David's going to come back to me and explain it, or be like, okay, we got to be careful. This might be money laundering, and then he's a board member, right? So I'm not going to like, based on this exchange, boom, our board member's laundering money.
No,
right. So, but I'm voyaging also during this, and then I decide to talk to an expert when I come back to Finland. I don't know. I don't have an experience with this, right? And then it's 2019. So then I come back to Finland, spring 2020, and the fucking pandemic erupts, and then I'm in isolation, right? And then we're rushing towards bankruptcy. Lauren's stuck in Africa. He gets like malaria and parasites because I'm like, I told him like, would you do what you feel? Like maybe it's even safer in Africa from the pandemic. Because of like everything's outside and so on, and it hasn't really started. Like that never really starts in Africa.
Yeah, I mean they are not connected like we are.
Exactly. So I'm like, maybe it's even safer in Africa. But what we didn't realize is that there's other dangers in Africa. And then right after the last plane left, I think Burkina Faso he was in. Malaria season starts and he gets malaria. He needs 2 treatments of malaria. So anyways. All this happens. And then I'm also like, okay, well, it's chaotic for us. It's also chaotic for David. So I'm like, okay, when things get sorted out, we'll come back to this Ghana thing. So it's always like something that bothers me in the back of my mind. But it's not clear what I can do about it in the pandemic. And it was literally like I come back February to Finland with the intention to go talk to somebody. Right? These emails were in September. I don't hear anything about it. I'm like, okay, let's give it I talked to David a bit, whatever. So, yeah, and this is still not proof David's laundering money.
No, of course not.
So I don't want to.
There's no proof anyone is laundering money.
No. This is pretty good proof because they say like now in the emails I've read you, there's clearly no other supplier. Right?
Yeah. There is no supplier.
And they're getting PPAs.
Yeah.
Right. To get a PPA, you need a technology.
Yeah.
Right. So they're fraud, and then they talk about these money transfers.
Yeah.
So money laundering is just you need a crime. And then you need money being moved that benefits from the crime. Money laundering is the moving of funds from an illicit activity.
Yeah.
Right. So if this is fraud, the activity is illicit, and the moving the money is the money laundering part.
Okay.
Right. So this is more or less proof Christians laundering money. But at that time, I did it like I was so kind of overwhelmed by this. That's why I'm like I got to talk to an expert. And then what to do about David, and then the investors have veto powers on all legal processes.
Well,
Arto,
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know what Arto's going to do.
And Arto, we haven't heard from Arto for years.
Yeah, we haven't exactly. So I don't know what Arto's going to do, and I don't trust Arto, obviously.
No, of course not.
Right. So also like maybe I shouldn't go talk to a lawyer with. So I'm worried about these. I'm worried about all this stuff, and then I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't go talk to an attorney or an expert about this with company money, just my own personal money. Right, because then it's not starting a company legal process.
Yeah. So,
right. But then I need to get that money.
Yeah,
right,
sure.
and then
just increase your salary.
Yeah, that's what I would do. But then the pandemic starts.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, and then immediately, and then I take the contract. Normally, I wouldn't work for you because I, as CEO of another company.
Yeah.
But I take the contract to do the patent, just because the fucking crash crisis. So then I have to do that. Then I'm committed to the patent thing. And then everything's crazy. Like then I get like
stress is off the roof. So I have to like Nordea never responds to our loan applications. Just never writes back. I phone, never phones back. It's on at some point, and then like 3 months passes by, and we're like now like weeks away from bankruptcy, right? And then I phone because nothing's happening in the field. No, like all projects are stopped. Nobody knows who's solvent, right? In the first months of the pandemic, and then like we're supposed to get government support, right? But the problem is in Finland, all government support was based on revenue, and in 2019 we didn't really make any revenue. We raised investment. Urs was raising investment in Switzerland, and even our project to make the solar sauna was technically investment, not revenue, because we're like developing the technology together with the Heuberge, the hotel. So our revenue, like the whole strategy in 2019 is we stop revenue, basically only like the minimum projects we have in Africa or whatever, and then we consolidate. We raise investment and we consolidate our services, and then we relaunch with high margin, with things worked out, high margin. We had to invest in capacity in Africa. We had to do a lot of stuff on the NGO front to make them profitable, and especially publicity. So what makes our just in terms of what our business is happening for us is what makes our NGO service business profitable is the press we get from the solar sauna, because that gives us super good press, and NGOs love press. And then we can finally go to the true cost plus margin of these projects.
Yeah, sure.
Until then, we were losing money on every NGO project,
Which is normal.
Yeah, which is normal. We got to build up a track record, etc. Sure. But at some point, you can't continue that process, right? You have to raise investment to go next level, right? And so it's like we had learned how to do the projects, and we knew what we had to solve to sell at a higher price. So I'm like, so in 2019, and so anyways, that's all that to explain why we don't get any money automatically from the government, because we made basically no revenue. Whereas the automatic money from the government was just your last year's revenue, right? But and there's not really any other way to get money from the government for pandemic relief. So we had to do like just a kind of a normal business loan. Like there's still business loan programs.
Sure.
Nordea never phones us back. Eventually I phoned Nordea and someone was like, oh, well, the person in charge of your case doesn't want to speak English. That's why she doesn't phone you back. I'm like, fucking serious? So I sent an email like the next day threatening to sue Nordea for discrimination. Right? Like I was just told the only reason we're not getting any service is because we speak a foreign language. 10 days later, we had 50,000 euros on the account from Nordea.
Yeah. People, 2020, dude. 2020, discrimination. Yes. Oh shit.
Yes.
15.
Take it. Take it all.
Take it all. Leave me alone.
Exactly.
We live in such a weird period of time.